I never forget one moment that I'm awake about the hostages whose lives and whose safety depend on me. And I am pursuing every possible avenue to have the hostages released.
Request splash out. Shot over. Splash out. Record his target. End of mission. Target suppressed out.
Late yesterday, I canceled a carefully planned operation which was underway in Iran to position our rescue team for a later withdrawal of American hostages who've been held captive there since November 4th. Equipment failure in the rescue helicopters made it necessary to end the mission. As our team was withdrawing after my order to do so, two of our American aircraft collided on the ground following a refueling operation in a remote desert location in Iran. However, a resolution of this crisis through negotiations and with voluntary action on the part of the Iranian officials was obviously then, has been, and will be preferable.
We'll always remember the day when I learned from the shortwave radio, which was in my room at that point in the foreign ministry. I had been given access to a shortwave radio, that a rescue mission to free us had failed in eastern Iran. I had access before any of the other hostages did, because I had that radio. I heard the president speaking, President Carter, speaking to the American public about that rescue attempt and its failure. I wasn't angry that I didn't get released. I was not in favor of a rescue mission from day one. I thought it would be a failure. But I wasn't angry this time because they didn't get me out of there. I was angry because 8 men had died. I had made a pledge to myself, if you will, as the chief of that mission at the beginning of this crisis, that if we handle this right, there will be no loss of life on either side. It was clear to me that morning when I heard that 8 men had died, given their lives, in effect, to their objective of winning freedom for me. And I was deeply saddened, not least for the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, who had put so much effort into this and who had pledged himself from the beginning, I think throughout that crisis, that he wanted to avoid killing. He wanted to resolve this peacefully. He turned to that rescue mission at that point because he felt that he was getting nowhere with a peaceful process. So he committed himself and his presidency to that effort, and it failed. And that failure, evident to the American people, is another example that Carter couldn't manage things, that Carter lost his presidency that day, in my mind. He never got over it.
This rescue attempt had to await my judgment that the Iranian authorities could not or would not resolve this crisis on their own initiative. With the steady unraveling of authority in Iran and the mounting dangers that were posed to the safety of the hostages themselves, and the growing realization that their early release was highly unlikely, I made a decision to commence the rescue operations plans.
President Carter was under immense pressure to take military action against Iran. And he resisted. And he tried to work through the international court, through the UN, through international relations, through people. He had basically people from every Islamic country sent emissaries to Iran to talk to them and say, look, this is hurting Iran. This is not being helpful. He tried everything you can possibly imagine in terms of an attempt to solve this problem in a diplomatic way. And as I say, the government at that time, which was a revolutionary government in Iran and which had its own set of interests, just was not interested in that. And none of those things worked. I mean, the other possibility would have been the United States coming in with guns blazing to basically, if the hostages die, okay, but we're gonna go in and Iran is going to be defeated. We could have done that, and we didn't. Some people in the United States would say that was a mistake. And some people would say that's why Jimmy Carter didn't get elected again, is he was too weak. He didn't take dramatic action to try to get these people out. But if you're trying to do it diplomatically, then it takes two sides again. You have to have two sides that are willing to cooperate. We were never able to have any contact with the Iranian government on this subject for a full year, from the time the hostages were taken until Iran independently decided that it wanted the whole thing to be done.
When I was in charge of the Iran desk and the hostages were taken, there were some people in the American government who wanted either to threaten force against Iran or to use force against Iran. I would oppose that because I thought if you make a threat, you're going to have to follow through. If you follow through, you're dooming the hostages. They will certainly be killed. After all, we have been through a period in Iran in which anyone that the Iranian government, the Khomeini government decided was needed to be executed was quickly executed. And that could have been the fate of our hostages as well. So I opposed it. And Carter agreed with me that we should not use military force all the threat of military force until he changed his mind on the rescue mission.
The alternative of either going the diplomatic route and trying to do everything according to international law, or to use the law of the jungle, which a lot of people wanted to do. Jimmy Carter resisted that. I respected him for that, but that's why he couldn't deal with the hostage crisis. It was, if you tried to negotiate and the other side won't talk to you, it's very hard.
When we were doing the hostage crisis, after about 6 months into it, we still had diplomatic relations with Iran. We didn't break relations until everything seemed to come to an end. And I think Carter had decided on a rescue mission. We broke our relations. We hadn't broken relations earlier, in part because we wanted to avoid what had happened between the US and China.
And keep always your faith in God and in your freedom. When there is life, there is hope. And when there is hope, there is life. And think that all over the world, everybody is thinking about you. And I am quiet now because before my visit, I had heard so many bad things about you. You are tired, you are sick. I find that you are nice, you are good.
We have made suggestions as to how the American people could be informed of our situation, and also some ideas on how to bring about our release. I hope very much that those suggestions have been studied by the students and have been transmitted to the United States.
I was one of the three originators of the rescue plan, okay? 3 days after it came, 3 Foreign Service officers, I won't name the other 2, and I went in to see Gary sick and said, look, you've got to get them back. Otherwise, it's going to be so costly it won't happen. Now, I was only critical of the way it was carried out in retrospect. I was also one of the people that criticized the Admiral Holloway's report on the crisis. And I learned something about that. That's when I got really pissed off and made a few criticisms. They picked the wrong helicopters for starters. They didn't pick the ones with the sand shields. We had perfect intelligence coming in. You know, the ambassador's chauffeur was on an airplane with our military attaché from Greece to Rome the night before it was to go, and identified the location of every single one of the hostages. The military planning was not done as it should have been, entirely by the Special Forces team. The people that ran the helicopters were, for God's sake, a supply group. You know, their officers couldn't even meet the minimum fiscal requirements for the Special Forces. When we made the recommendation, we made the assumption that the Delta Forces, the Special Forces, would run the entire operation, not knowing that Carter had stood down the Special Forces 6 months before the Iranian takeover. The problem with the hostage raid was that it was not properly carried out. We learned little by little that the Secretary of Defense was perfectly prepared to go back in the next day with the B team, and he didn't do that. And I learned that from one of the pilots on the raid who happened to be my boss at the Naval Academy. You know, he disappeared 3 weeks before it happened, and they said he's in Washington. Well, a week after the raid, he came back in, and I noticed when he walked in that he had a little henna on his sideburns. And I walked in and said to him in Farsi, he'd been naval attaché out there. And we'd known each other just very briefly, but now we were colleagues. I said, John, you may bullshit the rest of them that you were in Washington, but I know you were at Desert One. What about it? And he just locked the door and unloaded on me about he was almost ready to resign his commission because the thing had been so badly botched. And of course, what that cost us was all our remaining assets in Iran. Either a few were caught, but most escaped. But at that point, we had no operating stuff.
I was told after the fact that yes, indeed, there was a plan to break off part of the group to come and get the three of us. I've always been a little skeptical of that. I'm not a military planner by training, although in the last dozen years or so I've had a pretty extensive exposure to it. But even as a non-planner, it struck me that prudence would dictate if you're sending a small rescue team through what in effect was a 1,000-kilometer-long logistics pipeline to get to Tehran, that when you got to Tehran, you would not divide your force when you had 50 people in one location and 3 in another. You'd concentrate on the target that offered the main value, which was obviously the embassy. But as I said, I've been assured by people who were involved in the planning that there was indeed a component of it that was aimed at us. In any event, our relationship with our guards for several weeks after that happened were rather cool because of their presumption that we knew about it and that their lives certainly would have been at risk if the rescue team had gotten to Tehran.
من تو ماشین نشستم، هنوز ماشین حرکت نکرده بود که صدای هواپیماها بلند شد. ماشین ما راه افتاد، هلیکوپتر همون نزدیک بود. وارد هلیکوپتر شد که هواپیماها شروع کردن بمباران کردن و دو هلیکوپتر رو بمباران کردن. بمباران اینها به کیفیت خاصی بود و حساب شده بود. دو هلیکوپتری که بمباران شده بود، یکی هلیکوپتری بود که ما ابتدا که اونجا رسیدیم روشن بود، البته پرواناش نمیشه، خیلی صدای خاصی رو داشت که کار میکرد و آثارش این بود که رادیو اونجا کار نمیکرد وقتی اون روشن بود. یعنی بعد از بمباران اون دیگه رادیو هم به کار افتاد. یکی اون رو زدن و یکی هم همین هلیکوپتری که شهید منتظر قائم رفت اونجا که باز اون رو هم نگاه میکنه ببینه چی داره. ما 10 متری همونجور داشتیم با سرعت، ماشین داشت سرعت میگرفت که به شدت آمدند و بمباران کردند. همونطور جلو و ما اطراف داشت بمب میریخت و راکت میزدن. ما هر آن فکر میکردیم که الان به ما اصابت میکنه و ما هم به شهادت میرسیم، اما این توفیق به این سعادت نصیب ما نشد. رفتیم جلوتر یه مقدار، رفتیم محلی که سرهنگ سهرابی بود. ما خواستیم پیاده بشیم تو اینها جریان رو بگیم. اینشون توی یک حوضی بود که سخت اشاره کرد که به هیچ عنوان توقف نکنید، سریع رد بشید که خطرناک هست. ما گذشتیم و اینها هم سریعا تو ماشین نشستند و تعدادی از بچه‌ها که اونجا بودن راه افتادن. در محل بمباران هواپیما 5 نفر یا 7 نفر از برادران پاسدار کمیته و همچنین سپاه یزد بودند که در این حادثه شهید منتظر قائم به شهادت رسید و 2 نفر هم مجروح شدند لذا سریعا مجروحین رو تو ماشین گذاشتند و ماشین هم چون تعدادی رفته بودیم که سرهنگ سهرابی رو بیاریم وسیله کم بود، همون ماشین آمریکایی ها رو به اجبار مورد استفاده قرار دادن، 2 تا از مجروحین رو گذاشتن تو اون و آمدیم تا رسیدیم به رباط خان. 7 فرسخ از محل حادثه دور شدیم. ما به رباط خان که رسیدیم در همین بین فرمانده لشکر خراسان ایشون آمد و اونجا و بعد گفت که بله ما دستور دادیم که هواپیماها رو بمباران کنند.
خواهش میکنم بفرمایید در اون زمان فرمانده لشکر 77 خراسان چه کسی بودن؟
فرمانده لشکر 77 خراسان آقای قبادی یا قبادیان، فکر میکنم قبادی ایشون بود. آمد بعد من گفتم جناب سرهنگ یعنی شما دستور دادید که بچه‌های ما رو بکشند؟ این یه مرتبه جا خورد و گفت مگر کسی شهید شده طوری شده؟ گفتم که بله. بعد گفت بی تماس حالا بگیریم ببینیم هواپیما ایرانی بوده یا آمریکایی. بعد رفتیم تماس گرفتن و گفتن که نخیر هواپیماها ایرانی بوده و به دستور آقای بنی صدر اینها بناس منهدم بشن و مابقی هم بمباران خواهند شد.
من البته شخصا فکر نمی کنم اگه می اومدن به تهران برنامهشون اونطوری که باید به نتیجه می رسید. این یه چیزیست که اینو الان به صورت تحلیلی جدی دارم میگم. من آمریکایی‌ها متوجه نبودن جامعه ایران جامعه انقلابی بود. جامعه انقلابی معناش این بود که اگر نمیشه توش برنامه‌ریزی سیستماتیک کرد، اگه شما به یه حکومت دیگه این کار رو بکنی که ارتشش پلیسش خواب بمونه، بله میشه. اما اشکال این بود که توی ایران اولین درگیری که به وجود میومد ممکن بود از اطراف سفارت صدها و هزاران نفر تو مسیر آدم مسلح بیاد بیرون.
نباید بیدار بشن اونهایی که توجه به معنویات ندارن و به این غیب ایمان نیاوردن، نباید بیدار بشن. کی این هلیکوپترهای آقای کارتر را که میخواستن به ایران بیان ساقط کرد؟ ما ساقط کردیم؟ شنها ساقط کردن. شنها مأمور خدا بودن. باد مأمور خداست. قوم عاد را باد از بین برد. این باد مأمور خداست. این شنها همه مأمورند. و السلام علیکم و رحمت الله.
When I came to Iran the second time in 1978, and this was late November of 1978, I knew right away the world was upside down and that my experience would no longer reflect the earlier experience. The earlier experience was one of novelty and a sense of, wow, how interesting. Now things seem to be, from the moment go that I arrived, pretty negative and pretty sour situation. I arrived in Mehrabad, caught a cab. We had to race to the hotel that I was staying at At that time, it was on Takhta Jamshid, and it's changed. I think it's Talagani now. There was a curfew on. I saw banks that were burned out, tanks in the street, and I had to hurry up and get into the hotel. And that was my first evening. And for me, that was so symbolic of what was going to happen in Iran and what was going to unfold, you know, throughout the next couple of years.
Now, at that time, for the first 2.5 years or so that I was in Iran, I was in Shiraz, not in the embassy. I was the principal officer at our consulate in Shiraz. But when I moved up to Tehran in February of 1979, I was asked by Ambassador Sullivan to come up and head the political section because, for better or worse, I'd developed a reputation in Iran as being skeptical about a lot of things. And bear in mind, in February of 1979, the Shah had left just 2 or 3 weeks before Khomeini had come back on the 1st of February. So, and then there had been this sort of brief but fairly violent upheaval in Tehran and beginning, I guess, on the 9th or 10th of February, which had lasted for a few days. So everything was really in a state of flux and a state of chaos almost.
The embassy was controlled by a Ghasab, a former Ghasab. He actually controlled the entrance and exit to the embassy, and he controlled our storehouse. So, I mean, there was no law and order. We could complain to the Prime Minister's office, the Bazargan or whatever, but nothing could happen. So it was a world where one day I could be driving down the street and everything's all right. Next moment I'm stopped, and then there's a local comité putting me on trial for something. Now, I'd usually be able to get out of it, showing my passport and so forth. But you know, there was no love lost between the United States and many Iranians at that time. And everybody thought that anybody who was an American was a CIA agent, you know. And, you know, for good or for bad, American foreign policy made that happen in the Iranian mindset. On February 14th, 1979, only a few days after Khomeini came into power, the embassy was invaded by the Fedayeen-e-Khalq, and I was almost killed that day, but I had luckily been able to save some people and help with this attempt. Basically, the Fedayeen-e-Khalq was shooting from all sides at the embassy, and we had to stay in the safe of the embassy. Eventually, I had to relinquish the safe. I was taken out with others and held up against the wall, and I know for sure that we were going to get shot.
We came under very heavy attack from 2 or 3 sides of the compound, and a group of very well-equipped armed men came in here, shot up my house and occupied it, shot up the embassy, Chancery. We telephoned to the Security Committee with the Khomeini group. They managed to send a group of people here just in the nick of time because we had abandoned the ground floor and we're all on the upper floor by the time these lads came, these freedom fighters, and they apparently routed the others and saved us.
And then it sounded as if this was a John Wayne movie. All of a sudden, troops assembled by Foreign Minister Yazdi came in and saved the day for us. We were only moments away from death. So you can see that life was very tenuous at that time, very, very tenuous. And especially if you were, an American, I think, it was better not to be seen most of the time.
The reason we believed that the Iranian government would do its duty, basically, was because they had done it in February. A mob had broken into the embassy, took the people hostage. There's a very famous picture of Bill Sullivan with a mask on his face being led out of the embassy. And very quickly thereafter, the Iranian government, which was even more revolutionary, that was right during the time of the revolution, February of 1979. The Iranian government came in and said, no, stop that, and released them all and reopened the embassy. So that we already had one example that they would do that. In this case, the government was not willing to intervene. It worked to their benefit, and in fact, they cooperated with you. And this surprised everybody, not just the Americans.
We have been in touch with those in control of the government of Iran, and we stand ready to work with them. In the last few hours, our embassy has reported that the followers of designated Prime Minister Barzani have been very helpful in ensuring the safety of Americans, and we've been consulting with them very closely. So I believe that the people of Iran and their government will continue to be our friends, and that the relationship will be helpful to us.
I think they moved a lot of what files they had still there. They sent back to Washington. I think they said we have to draw back somewhat. We have to change the policing of the embassy. But again, it was largely to what degree do we embrace the new government? And to what degree do we try to keep a certain sense of neutrality? To what degree do we commit ourselves to the future of this government? What will the nature of our relationship and links be?
امریکا به طور کامل پشت سر یک رژیم و حکومتی بود که مردم در طی سالیانی که گذشت، از سال 32 بعد سال 42 بعد جریان سرکوبی که وجود داشت از سال 44 به بعد، نسبت بهش تنفر داشتن و امریکا به طور کامل در واقع حمایت میکرد. اوج این موضوع 17 شهریور اتفاق افتاد تو این کشور و مردم با تمام وجود متنفر شده بودن از حکومت و کارتر اومد حمایت کامل خودش رو اعلام کرد و اینها یه مجموعه‌ای بود که نمیتونست از خاطر و ذهن مردم این در واقع کینه‌ورزی آمریکا رو نسبت به این ملت به اصطلاح بزداید.
توی چنین وضعیتی با یه چنین موقعیت ضد امریکایی که انقلاب به پیروزی رسید 7 ماه 8 ماه ما وضعیت ناامن فوق‌العاده سنگینی رو داشتیم. ناامنی از خوزستان شروع می‌شد میومد کردستان میرفت تا ترکمن صحرا. ما محیطمون محیط کاملا ناامنی شده بود. توی این 7 ماه 8 ماه دولت ناتوان از کنترل وضعیت بود و این باعث شده بود که ما احساس بکنیم که یه اتفاقی داره میفته. اون اتفاق ناخوشایند
اگر می‌خواستیم بهش برسیم این بود که انقلابمون سقوط میکنه. دوباره ما میشیم مثل دوره مصدق سقوط میکنه، شاه برمیگرده ایران.
تحلیل ما این بود که کلاً فرماندهان نظامی که فرار کردن بعد از انقلاب، یعنی در دوران انقلاب از ایران رفتن اون روزهای آخر و اکثرشون هم آمریکا بودند، اونها یک محور تجمع و سازماندهی احتیاج داشتن که بتونن حول و حوش اون جمع بشن و برنامه ریزی بکنن برای مقابله با انقلاب و کسی غیر از شاه نمیتونسته این نقش رو بازی بکنه و به این دلیل شاه پذیرفته شده. یعنی پذیرفتن شاه کاملا یک اقدام جدی بر علیه انقلاب و تداعی کننده ماجراهای دوران مصدق بود که شاه رفت و برگشت. به خصوص در محیط‌های دانشجویی خیلی قوی چنین تصوری وجود داشت. علائمی هم پیش می آمد، اتفاقاتی می افتاد که این رو تقویت می کرد. مهمترین اقدامی که خیلی تقویت کرد این رو زمانی بود که شاه پذیرفته شد در آمریکا و اجازه ورود بهش داده شد. تحلیل در بین ما دانشجوها این بود که ظاهر قضیه برای معالجه هست و اینکه شاه رو برای معالجه پذیرفتن. یعنی خیلی این باور نمیشد که شاه امکان نداشت در جای دیگری معالجه بشه و حتما برای معالجه باید میرفت آمریکا.
This had happened before in history. We had helped get rid of old Reza Shah back in the 1940s. We had helped overthrow Mossadegh, the prime minister, in 1953. We had helped bring the Shah back after he had run away from Iran in 1953. And it looked more and more to the Iranians like we were going to do the same thing all over again.
At the time I went to Iran, U.S.-Iran relations were tense, to say the least. The revolutionary government had already taken charge, and there was a great degree of distrust on the part of the revolutionary government because they had viewed the United States as being not just a supporter of the Shah and the Shah's regime, but they viewed the United States as the primary inspiration behind the regime of the Shah, and they were concerned about the possibility of a counter coup against the Iranian regime, the Iranian revolutionary regime, much along the lines of what they saw in 1953 when there was a counter coup against Mossadegh.
No matter who you are as an Iranian, many Iranians have this whole notion of some sort of plot going on. Historically and in reality, Iranians feel that there would or had felt that the United States could somehow bring the Shah back, there would be another revolution. Obviously that was not the case, but we couldn't really disabuse anyone about that. And there were many people in the United States who felt that the Shah was a major ally against the Soviets. Remember, our point of view during these years was not the point of view of our relationship vis-a-vis Iran. Our biggest issue was how can we use Iran, the United States, vis-a-vis the Soviet Union. So we could say in many ways that our position vis-a-vis Iran was that it was a great buffer, it's a great listening post, and we didn't care about the human situation in Iran. In fact, our interest in Iran was not in the political situation in Iran at all. And I think that's the biggest mistake that the United States made, because we were friends with Iran for many, many years, but we never took into consideration the social and political situation within Iran.
Well, to go back, we learned about the Shah's illness and about his being admitted to the States around the 20th of October. And personally, my thought was, and I think the thought of a lot of my colleagues was, it's over for us. We've been hung out to dry. This is not going to fly. Today, tomorrow, the next day, something's bad's going to happen. What is going to happen, I don't know. It was very clear we could not depend on the government at the time, that is Bazargan's provisional government, to protect us or the embassy. But the interesting thing was that for about 2 weeks, nothing did happen. And I began to think, maybe I was wrong. My judgment of this was wrong. It wouldn't be the first time that I had misjudged a political situation. And then, of course, the 4th of November came, and there was the reaction. It was just that the reaction happened later and in a different way than what we thought.
کار امریکایی‌ها رو نمیفهمم چرا انجام شده. اونها خودشون توجیه میکردن به اسمی که یک کار انسان دوستانه یا بشر دوستانه رو انجام میدن، ولی به لحاظ سیاسی خیلی غیر منطقی بود و نه تنها ورود شاه به امریکا، بعداً نگه داشتن شاه، با اینکه امریکایی‌ها خودشون میدونستن فوق‌العاده آسیب پذیرن و این کار مردم ایران رو تحریک میکنه، ولی باز هم نگهش داشتن. و حتی وقتی که تعدادی از افرادشون توی ایران گروگان بودن و میدونستن راه حل قضیه این هست که شاه رو از امریکا اخراج بکنن، ولی من تعجب میکنم چرا اصرار کردن به این که دائما شاه رو نگهش دارن.
When Jimmy Carter made his decision to admit the Shah, one of the calculations was political. This was October of 79. He was facing election in a year, and his poll numbers weren't very good. I think it was Ham Jordan who said to him, look, if the Shah, we don't admit the Shah, and he dies in Mexico, the Republicans are going to have a field day. Because they're going to say, first, you lost Iran, and second, you let the Shah die in Mexico.
همه اطلاعاتی که منتشر شده وجود داره این هستش که 3 نفر، کیسینجر، راکفلر، نیکسون، فشار آوردن به کارتر که شاه رو بپذیره. شاه رو بپذیره با علم به این که اگه بپذیرن در ایران گروگانگیری میشه. و گروگانگیری به کارتر فرصت میدهد به نیروهایی که به لابی نیکسون، راکفلر اینها امکان میدهد که کارتر رو وادار بکنن به اینکه پول ایران رو بلوکه بکنه تا بتوانن 4 میلیارد دلار خودشون رو نقد بکنن و کردن. در حالی که حتی اگر ایران میامد میگه من 4 میلیارد دلار رو میپردازم، صرف داشت اینکه نقد بپردازه. چرا؟ برای اینکه اون 4 میلیارد دلار بهره بانکی 4% بود، در حالی که نرخ بهره بانکی در اون موقع 18% بود. اگر قرار بود که به دلیل گروگانگیری ما پول رو بپردازیم، خب بدون گروگانگیری میپذیرفتیم، ولی میپذیریم.
My comment on the situation was that in Iran, at the time of the Shah, the close of his reign in Iran, we weren't trying to follow the middle course B. What we were trying to do was follow courses A and C simultaneously. And so what we ended up doing was we ended up undercutting the Shah, but at the same time developing a lot of distrust on the part of the new Iranian regime. And that distrust carried over, and it was really something that we weren't able to get beyond, particularly after the decision was made to allow the Shah to enter the United States. Clearly the idea on the part of the mullahs and the ayatollahs was that we had not given up on the Shah, that we were still trying to pursue course C at the same time as simultaneously pursuing course A, and I think that was the basic failure.
I think the biggest problem we had was how do we deal with the Shah? Now that the Shah was in exile, the Shah had requested some sort of medical asylum in the United States. And from my point of view, and the cable traffic that I wrote, and the cable traffic that many others wrote, we stated explicitly that it would be the worst decision ever made to accept the Shah in the United States.
At the beginning, the hostage taking was clearly a result of the fact that the Shah had been permitted to come into the hospital in the United States. That may have been a mistake, but it was misinterpreted in Iran. People thought that this was the first step to returning the Shah to the throne. Anybody who saw the Shah during that period knows that he was not on his way back to the throne. He was dying. And he did die about 6 months later. But that was the first instance. That's what triggered the event.
شرایط جامعه ما یه طوری بود که اگر ما همین کار رو نمی کردیم این کار اتفاق می افتاد. یعنی در ایران مثلا 6-7 ماه اون زمان از انقلاب گذشته بود، نسبت به آمریکا دیدی بود که اصلا تلقی این بود که آمریکا با تمام توان کمر بسته که این انقلاب رو به هر نحو هست باش مقابله بکنه و از بین ببره. به این دلیل این پتانسیل اصلا در جامعه بود که این کار بشه. ما موقعی که این تصمیم رو گرفتیم و جنبندیمون این شد که این کار رو بکنیم، 10 روز فکر میکنم 10 روز قبل بود، من اگر اشتباه نکنم در اون سال به نظرم 13 آبان روز یک شنبه بود و ما روزی که اولین بار این بحث رو داشتیم توی اتاقی بود شبیه اینجا با هم صحبت کردیم، یا چهارشنبه یا پنجشنبه حدوداً 10-11 روز قبلش میشد صحبت کردیم. توی این 10 روز که دیگه ما بنامون این بود این کار رو بریم روز 13 آبان انجام بدیم، دائم هی نگران بودیم که تو این فاصله یه گروه دیگه این کار رو بکنن.
I did not recommend that we close the embassy. I never recommended that we close the embassy. There are those people who say we should have closed the embassy on day one. That is day one, the day we informed the government that we were admitting the Shah. I don't know what difference that would make. One of my colleagues, a celebrated guy, Charlie Noss, who says we should have closed the embassy and left one man and a dog. That's what we should have done. You can't repeat history. Can't undo history.
لا یحب الله الجهر بالسوء الا من ظلم. یعنی خدا دوست نداره آدم صداشو بلند کنه، داد و فریاد بزنه، مگر یه استثناء قائل شده، مگر برای کسی که بهش ظلم شده. یعنی کسی که مظلوم شده و مظلوم واقع شده اگه جیغ و داد و فریاد بکنه اشکالی براش وارد نیست. لذا این تسخیر لانه شاید به عبارتی برگرده به این جمله که آقا یه ملت مظلوم بودن، اینو داد و فریاد زدن، داد و فریادشون با این اشغال لانه تحقق پیدا کرده. یعنی به عبارتی در جهت تعالیم انبیا و تعالیم الهی شاید بشه اینو قلمداد کرد.
And again, not explained by exotic Islamic beliefs. I've come to the conclusion that, in part based on my interviews with the hostage takers and others, that the key to understanding Iran and understanding the Iranian government is to be found not in the Quran, but in the universal exigencies of power. That's what it's all about, I think, and the money that goes with power and the money that supports power.